Have you ever stopped to think how just one election result can ripple through a whole country's politics, affecting everything from, say, the courts to, well, even schools? Today, we're doing a deep dive into Poland, where things are shifting pretty fast politically. We've got a stack of sources here detailing what's been happening, and our job is basically to unpack it all for you. We want to help you understand who the key players are, what drives them, and what it all means, both right now and down the line. So the aim here is to give you a really clear picture of these new dynamics in Poland, the main conflicts, and why it's all pretty crucial to keep an eye on, without getting bogged down in too much jargon.
Okay, let's jump right in. I think we have to start with the biggest piece of news: Karol Nawrocki becoming Poland's new president. Because his win, well, it immediately sets up this political tug of war. It's already shaping things. He was sworn in August 6th, 2025. He follows Andrzej Duda, who finished his second term. Now, Nawrocki, he's a conservative historian, and he's backed by the Law and Justice Party, PIS.
The Nationalist Socially Conservative Party. And the election itself was super close. He got, 50.89% in a runoff against the liberal Rafał Trzaskowski. Really tight.
Yeah, extremely tight. And what's really fascinating here is Nawrocki's agenda that he stated. It's not just a list of policies. It's really a kind of fundamental challenge to where Poland's been heading since communism fell. He talks a lot about patriotic values, Polish sovereignty, and that's a direct counterpoint to Prime Minister Donald Tusk's government, which is much more pro-EU. So you don't just have conflict, you have this clash over Poland's identity, really, its place in Europe.
And our sources also point out some international links, like endorsements from people like U.S. President Donald Trump. How significant is that kind of backing?
Well, putting it in the bigger picture, that Trump endorsement, it sort of signals an alignment, doesn't it, with that particular kind of national populism. It fits with Paja's own vision for Poland. And his presidency, it's pretty widely expected to make Poland's internal political divisions even deeper. He's almost certainly going to use his veto power a lot to block reforms from Tusk's government, especially on, those really contentious issues: judicial independence, abortion, LGBTQ plus rights.
So it's a continuation of Paja's influence, then?
Absolutely. A clear continuation of Paja's influence right there in the presidency. It really sets the stage for pretty rocky couple of years leading up to the next general election in 2027.
Okay, so given this new president with this potential veto power, the big question is, how does Tusk's government push forward its own agenda, especially on things they've been working on for a while, like judicial reform? Our sources flag a really key move here: a new appointment. Waldemar Jurek. He's a former judge, known for being quite vocal against Pius's judicial changes back in the day. He's just been made Poland's justice minister, part of a cabinet reshuffle by Tusk.
Right, and that raises the obvious question: what exactly is Jurek supposed to do? What's his main job here? And it's a huge task. He's basically facing the challenge of dismantling Pius's footprint on the judiciary, particularly getting rid of or dealing with judges appointed under that previous government. This is so critical because, as you know, the EU has been really harsh in its criticism of those appointments.
Seeing the undermined independence.
Precisely. Accusing them of removing critical judges and putting in politically friendly ones, eroding essentially the whole idea of an independent judiciary.
This sounds like a massive challenge. What happens if Tusk's government can't undo Paisas's influence here? How important are those EU funds, really?
Oh, the stakes are incredibly high. Jurek's appointment, it signals Tusk is serious. He intends to really step up efforts to restore the rule of law. And that is the absolute key condition for unlocking billions in EU funds, money Poland really needs for its economy, for recovery development.
Billions, okay.
Yes, billions. But President Nawrocki and his veto power, that's a major institutional hurdle, a roadblock. It'd absolutely stall Jurek's reforms, maybe indefinitely, and just worsen that power struggle between the government and the presidency. And Brussels has been very clear. They've warned that real progress on fixing the judiciary as well. It's non-negotiable if Poland wants to keep its EU relationship smooth and get those funds.
Okay, so we have these big political fights, the legal battles over the courts. But our sources also show this deep divide popping up somewhere else, maybe somewhere less expected: education. Apparently, Poland's Ministry of Education is planning to look into perceived imbalances in the school system, specifically focusing on boys' development. The thinking seems to be that recent decades have focused more on girls' opportunities and needs. And they're even talking about appointing a special envoy just for boys' education, to tailor policies for the challenges boys might face.
Yeah, this ties into wider debates happening globally, doesn't it, about gender equity in education. But in Poland, given how polarized things are, Well, it could definitely stir up significant controversy. You know how cultural and social policies easily become these intense battlegrounds there? This kind of move, it taps right into certain cultural anxieties or grievances.
It feels quite different from the judicial fight, though. How does a specific policy, like focusing on boys' development, connect back to the Tusk government's bigger picture, their political strategy?
Exactly. That's the interesting part. While it might seem like a separate issue, it can be seen as a strategic move by Tusk's government. It's a way to try and navigate those cultural issues, maybe broaden their appeal a little. It shows how even things that seem less political, like education policy, can be, well, subtly used, maybe to connect with parts of the electorate who feel, I don't know, left behind by social changes.
Potentially taking some ground from the conservative opposition.
Potentially, yes. Or at least showing they're attentive to those concerns. It just underlines how deep these political struggles run. They reach into almost everything, even what's taught or how it's taught in schools.
So just to recap for you, you've just had a deep dive into Poland's really complex, fast-moving political situation. We've looked at the immediate friction, right, between the new conservative president and the pro-EU government, and also these maybe more subtle but still important cultural shifts showing up in places like education policy. We've seen how a new leader, these crucial court appointments, even specific school policies, they all feed into this really charged, very divided political atmosphere. As you think about all this, maybe consider what really strikes you about how deep these fights over basic principles like rule of law or societal values can get inside a democracy. And maybe zoom out a bit further. Think about how these internal struggles, these policy choices within one country, how they can actually echo beyond its borders, how they might shake international ties, economic stability, maybe even how we define national values on a bigger stage. Something to chew on.